Hello, excuse me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bathrobe Chat Live with Steve the Missionary. This is the Monday of Holy Week, so an extremely important day for all Christians, particularly Catholics. And there, I was going to talk about Holy Week, and I was going to talk about the big thing that Pope Benedict just published. Pope Emeritus Benedict just published, but then something massive happened, and I can't really avoid talking about it. So, if you've been watching the news or been online today, you'll know that Notre Dame in Paris is burning. And I was texted this by a friend, and I immediately found some like live stream, and I just had to spend the rest of the day only doing that. I was going to reread Benedict's whole article, but I was just glued to my screen the whole time, just watching what was going on, and it was kind of riveting in like a wretched way. And I'm just going to go through. I'm going to kind of process the feelings right now. I'm going to go through all of the various ways in which this hurts. Um, first, right now, just like the status as far as I can tell from watching the news. So again, this is kind of um, third uh, hand, but Notre Dame caught on fire immediately after closing time. They're guessing it started somewhere up near the roof or higher in the building. They're guessing so far that it was faulty wiring due to the restoration that was going on in Notre Dame, and it quickly burned everything that was wooden on the top half of the building. So that's the entire roof, the entire support structure for the roof, and the spire, the famous spire that goes up in the exact middle of the building, or in the cross section of the building, and it weakened the scaffolding that was around it um, for the restoration, and it went up one of the bell towers, and that part is, I think, since extinguished. From pictures, it looks like it didn't damage the actual vaulted ceiling, which is made out of stone. And the firefighters have reported that they have saved the stone structure of the church. Most of the stained glass has been heavily damaged, which is a crying shame. Um, and most of the and we've lost a lot. We've lost a lot from this fire. We did not lose, as far as I can tell, the major relics from the church. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, about how important, how scary it was once Catholics found out that no one was still in danger, and no one had died. Our very next question was, where are the relics and what's happening to the relics? And it was really difficult. It's still really difficult to get those answers from the news, because the news will talk in terms of priceless art and sacred artifacts, but we're talking specifically in terms of relics, which is very annoying when you're trying to get your information. So so I'm just going to go through kind of the various levels on which we have lost something. This is what we've lost. This is how much damage has done to this building, which was already hurting. It's an 800-year-old stone building. The stones were starting to show cracks. There was major renovations to keep it structurally sound, and then on top of that, there's this massive fire that really worries people. And but there's a lot of layers into what we've lost. So the first layer, is the Cathedral of Notre Dame of Paris, Our Lady of Paris, translated to English, is an official UNESCO World Heritage Site, meaning that it is a place of such historical significance, physical beauty, and human history and care that we've decided, kind of as a world, that it is for the posterity of all humanity. Making sure that this place survives is important to all of humanity, to show that we can do. Other UNESCO World Heritage Sites are lots of historic cities, places like Machu Picchu. The whole town is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is shocking. This is the patrimony, the posterity for all of humanity, not just for the place that built it. And losing this is the same as if the Taj Mahal had been destroyed in an earthquake, or the Great Wall of China was just suddenly gone. Being this close to losing Notre Dame de Paris is scary and frightening, just on a human level. On a, this is a thing that we had, and now we don't level. This is a thing that could show off what Cardinal Dolan said in the human project that we made, and now it's gone. That's what we're talking about here when we talk about losing Notre Dame. And so that's one. The second is just as a work of beauty. Let's say, the Prado in Spain burned down. The immense works of art, both in the classical sense of art, lifting us up closer to the forms or to God, and then also in the achievement sense of the art, in that this is what we were able to do. It is a product of who we are, both culturally and emotionally and historically. It is a work, and even if it was just the roof of the building or just the spire of the building, it's part of the massive architectural project of Notre Dame. It is part of the the thing the building is saying. Victor Hugo really like waxed poetic about buildings in the book Hunchback of Notre Dame, and one big thing about it was that before the published book, the way we expressed massive ideas was in stone. So a building like Notre Dame is is saying something to you. It's saying a lot of things to you, and every part is doing it. The what people When we built these things, they were everything down to the ratios of how tall something is versus how wide something is, from the tower to having two towers, to how long the building is versus how wide it is, to how many doors are in the front, to how tall does the roof go. These were all thought about and mulled over by masons and engineers and builders and probably priests, so that it reflects as closely as possible the point that we're trying to get across when we built this building. And now we've lost the whole top portion of it. And even to replace it is is not to have it back again. It's to replace it with something else. And as much as I hope that we can rebuild, and I want us to, there's a huge mourning of that, especially when you're thinking about the spire we built, and the various skills that were involved in building Notre Dame. We've lost, and I'm going to talk about that later in terms of just heritage. But um, no, I'm going to talk about it now. I've got my notes off to the side. They're part of everything in that building is part of a language, an architectural language, a visual language, a lot of which either through the skill of doing or the language of reading it, we have forgotten. And so the only thing that we have left is the product, and it's shameful that we let things like that happen, that we let things like that become a forgotten thing about us. There's entire chunks of human knowledge that are just gone. And then when their products are also gone, we there's a gaping hole in us as humans that is incredibly sad, and that we lost when the spire burned. We just lost it. And nothing replacing it is great and beautiful, and we should do it, but it is not the same as having it. And I'm incredibly, incredibly sad um, about that. So there's and we need to mourn not only that we don't have the thing, but we don't have the human wisdom that made the thing. So it's a combination. It compounds what we've already lost in that. Third, that I'm going to speak kind of the smallest about, is just like the identity. Like, this is a symbol of France and Paris itself. Even to the ones that weren't Catholic, they were the people that had Notre Dame, and this is a huge loss to them. It'd be like, I'm trying to think of an American example. It'd be as if Mount Rushmore, or if like oh, what's it called? Huckleberry Finn just disappeared one day. The entirety of Huckleberry Finn was just gone. There were no copies left. That or some other massive like work of us, something that made us from the United States. This is kind of like that. A massive part of the identity of France is gone. It's and, and that hurts. I was watching videos of people like yelling and gasping and screaming when the spire went down. I was watching videos of people kneeling and praying while the cathedral burned, um, asking for grace from God. There's a lot of hurt going on here because it pained French people at their heart, at the part of the country that they loved and the part of the country they were proud of. And there's that on the French side, and I'm not French. There was also that on the Catholic side, on the Christian side, leads me to the next point. This was a place of worship. It was a place of worship, and it was a religious center. It's at the very heart of the city. It's at the very heart of the old part of the city. It's one of the oldest buildings in the city. And as a cathedral, it is the head, the seat of of all the celebration going on for Holy Week. Europe and Holy Week is very kind of cathedral centric, especially these towns that were medieval towns, places that have squares in front of their cathedrals. There, many people use Notre Dame as a pilgrimage site, a place they go to for a religious event. There's Palm Sunday, which was yesterday, is famous at Notre Dame. It's absolutely beautiful. My mom's been there for Holy Week, and it's an incredible thing for them to for that it's an incredible thing to see when people come together in large groups in places like the Notre Dame Cathedral to celebrate a day in their religion, or a week in their religion. And it's that place is gone. So even just on the on the scheduling sense, this is a tough day. Like, there are millions of people in France who are going to be worshiping on for the rest of this week, culminating on Sunday. And there are thousands of people that were planning to do it at Notre Dame. What are they going to do now? How are we going to celebrate the death and resurrection of Jesus when our church is gone, when our church is unable to be worshipped in? How terrible is that? That we have to think in those terms. And thank God this was, as far as we can tell, an accident and not, an attack. There was an attack on a bombing attack on Palm Sunday in Egypt, and at their main cathedral at St. Mark's, and people died because of through this attack, and they were able to come together and like build this new place of worship. And their Easter Sunday was like an incredibly intense understanding of Easter and Easter's promises. And France is going to have to go through the exact same thing in the intense whiplash, spiritual and emotional whiplash, that is going to happen this week, when they're going to be worshiping somewhere else, worshiping directly in front of the cathedral, to praise God in front of, or in spite of, the fact that their church is burned. That's heavy. This is, a place of worship, a religious center, a center of devotion, a place where the worship of God happens. And the fact that it's not available to us is its own unique tragedy. And we should and the only response is really to mourn. Luckily, we have places in our own Bible that mourn with us. The Book of Lamentations and Psalm 137. The Book of Lamentations, how lonely sits the city. Psalm 137, by the rivers of Babylon we wept when we remembered Zion. And it's sad. So you have a place, there's space for us as Christians to lament, especially in Holy Week, where the entirety of Friday is a lamentation. So remember that. The other thing is that it's symbologically potent. That's what I thought when I first saw the footage of the cathedral burning. It was, and I'm not going to again talk too much because there are some senses where you can go off the rails when you talk like this. But to know what's happening in the church and in the religiosity of Christians and Catholics in uh, Europe and America, and in France in particular, this place that is famously proud of its secular nature. Um, the to see God allow a church like that just completely go up in flames is really potent and kind of frightening. There's biblical kind of precedent set for God allowing the jewels and gems of his of people who worship him to go down, to crumble, so that a true devotion and true love of God and love of neighbor can grow in the people. And there was a very real sense of watching that happen. And you saw that happen in uh, you see it happen online already, but you saw that happen in how some people were kneeling and praying, some people were just quiet, some people are already losing interest. The American news is already back on politics, and where I want to know if the ceiling is intact of this church, and and on I'm sorry, I'm just thinking a lot about this. So there's kind of like that symbolism. I'm worried that this was I'm a little bit worried that this was arson. One, because there have been attacks on physical church buildings in France. There have been, a priest was murdered in France a little while back. And this would be like a massive attack on so much in the Christian faith. So one, I just hope it wasn't an attack because that's scary that people are attacking on such a grand scale. Two, I hope it wasn't an attack because that means that innocent Muslims and innocent Arabs are going to get hurt in retaliation. So I desperately hope that it was just a mistake, and that it wasn't this and that it wasn't an attack. And as far as we can tell so far, it was a mistake, which on the one hand, there are the same things happening in Oakland where I used to work, where the cathedral is going through some massive engineering problems, and that means we get to sue the engineering company for all the money it takes to fix it. So maybe the the Archdiocese of Paris will come out on top and get to sue the company for all the money it takes to fix the cathedral. Silver linings. But again, replacing it is not the same as having it. It will be a new thing, a replacement of the old, and all we will have is memories of what was there. So again, symbologically potent, and just the fact that there's kind of a sense that the beautiful cathedrals, the beautiful statements of faith, statements of beauty that have been entrusted to us, 2019 people, they are crumbling just as much as the church that was entrusted to us, 2019 people. And I'm not bracketing all actual victims of everything, and not trying to like blame the people who are being hurt. But when the church is in shambles, our most beautiful things, our churches and our altars and our relics and our reliquaries, become museum pieces, and then they become liable simply to the problems of funding and the ins and outs of ticket sales. And then the faith as a living community becomes weak and anemic and less living. And it's not surprising that something scary like this happens, and when it's just another symptom of the weakness of the faith, I think. Not to say that churches have crumbled or burned when the faith was strong, obviously, and like I say, it's symbolism, so it's not a one to one, but there is definitely it made me reflect on a lot of things that are weak in myself and weak in us as a community, especially in places like France and America, and that's a little frightening. And again, hard to talk about without taking it off in a direction you don't want it to go. So I'm going to stop there. And last is the things that really are specific to us as Christians. That because all of those things before were things that you could notice from the outside looking in, from being a non-Parisian, a non-French, non-Christian looking at what's happened. We lost a work of beauty. We massive damage to a UNESCO World Heritage site. The crowds that were going to come for Holy Week have nowhere to pray now. Like, these are things that you can all notice. The symbolism of France is up in flames now, and those are things that you can all notice. And this is one of the things that really bothered me when I was watching the footage and watching the coverage. People, Notre Dame of Paris, the biggest tourist attraction of France or of Paris, and it's not the biggest tourist attraction of France. That's not its identity. Like, maybe it is the place where the most tourists go, but the identity of Notre Dame of Paris is a place that was crafted to praise God and facilitate the devotion of the people. That's its job. That's its identity. The fact that it's a tourist attraction is completely and entirely sidelined by that fact. And the fact that is burning, the fact that that is what's in danger of crumbling, the fact that that is what we lost today is something that isn't being kind of reacted to enough, I think. Or at least not in the news you watch to learn information about the state of the building. We lost a place that was crafted for praise and devotion. So every detail in the spire, every statue, every shingle on the building was created by a craftsman who did this for work, who did it to be paid, who and the other reasons you do work, who did it also as his own form of devotion. Like, I'm doing this well for the sake of praising God, but also placed it as something to be given to future generations of people who will use it as worship and devotion. And that's what's so, and I'm going to talk about this a little later. I'm going to call it religious heritage. It is a religious heritage, and it is a place of praise. Every curve in the carving is an act of praise, and that reaction to praise. Every statue that we lost that was made out of wood. We probably lost the organ too, and every stain in the stained glass window is an act of praise to God. And we had the remnants of that. And we had the remnants of that praise to God, and it's not there anymore. That's so sad. And we want our buildings to reflect God in some way, whether through just straight up beauty, whether through the awe-inspiring factor, whether through, or sometimes through its simplicity and its usefulness in serving the people. If you're real lucky, you get all three. But and so you as a Christian, you get this weird double sense of, like, the building is hurt or is gone. And I know that the building was not eternal, but I would have liked it to be, because it was part of the thing we worship God with. And because the only thing that's actually eternal is God. And we are lucky that we come from God. And again, the church is the church is the thing we use to worship God with, or Christians specifically. And now, going back to the relics, there are some very famous relics that are housed at Notre Dame Cathedral. So they are one, maybe two of the nails that were used to crucify Jesus, the crown of thorns, and the holy lance that pierced the side of Jesus, and a stone from the Holy Sepulchre. These are truly not replaceable, and they are physical manifestations of things that we definitely care about. They are the family heirlooms of Christianity, and they were housed, and they were given this beautiful building to be housed in, and that's a tradition that goes all the way across Christianity, all around the world. If there's a something like I'll call a family heirloom of Christianity, an heirloom, a relic of this magnitude, usually the building that's housed in is made exquisitely and beautifully on purpose, because these are not replaceable things. The crown of thorns of Christ is not a replaceable thing. And that's why once we found out that there were no more people in the building, we got very worried about the relics. What happened to the crown of thorns? As far as I could tell, it is saved. Um, but I at least the crown of thorns. There, and I'm getting this off of a report from one journalist who was quoting one priest that they have saved the crown of thorns, the sacrament. So they probably emptied the tabernacle, which is very good, and like sacred vessels, or something along those lines. So that probably means like chalices, crucifixes, stuff like that. So they saved and the people. So they saved what really mattered about the church, and then let the roof burn. But that's why Christians worry about 800-year-old buildings. One, because of all of that tradition and UNESCO World Heritage stuff, but also because they usually house something that is irreplaceably important to us, and we get very rightfully worried that the crown of thorns is gone. I was Before I found out that it was probably saved, I was really having to stare down like the possibility that we don't have that anymore, and how like maybe we didn't deserve it. Just look at us, that sort of thing. And so, there's that. And finally is this act of religious heritage. The Notre Dame Cathedral was built by God knows how many people, funded by God knows how many people, and it was built for them and their immediate posterity to worship God. It was built for the Bishop of Paris, but it was also, in a sense, built for me and for random person that has been to or lived in Paris. It is a thing that was built by various craftspeople with the care given to anything that you care about on a devotional level, so that I could pray there, so that I could be more easily brought to God in that place, and that every single person that visited, every single person that prayed, every single person that was an atheist and just wanted to see the inside was brought to a more readily, a more easily evangelized, a more easily converted place by that building. It is a faith heritage by the Christians before me, so that I can be in more obvious communion with them. Catholics spend a lot of time praying about the communion of saints, how we are all one body, one church, the ones who are alive and the ones who are dead and the ones who have passed. And this is a physical manifestation of that. The roof of Notre Dame Cathedral was a physical manifestation of the communion of saints, poetically stated as the democracy of the dead. And it's gone now. And thank God that, one, it's a non-material reality, so that I can simply reflect on, as on any day, and also thank God that there are other physical reminders, manifestations of this unity that I have with past Christians. But the fact that this one is gone, and this very old one is gone, is so, so sad. I think that's one of the reasons we care about old churches, and it's not just because there's this inherent feeling that older means more legitimate when it comes to religion, which there's definitely that feeling, right? But there's also the fact that if there's an 800-year-old church, that means that there is 800 years of faith in that building. When you go in and pray, you are praying with the 800 years of people who did the same thing before you. And your prayer, your pain, your joy, your sweat, your work is also in that. And we care greatly about that. That's our family. That's who we are. and every um, every time that's attacked, whether on accident or on purpose, is a time of pain for us. And that's that's the part that, you know, your news station is not going to be able to reflect on, kind of give its due justice. And that's something that we should talk about in our prayer. So thank you for letting me kind of talk through that. I'm gonna go through some of your comments now, and then we're gonna wrap it up, and I'll leave you to your Holy Week. So optimistically cynical is immediately reminding us about burning people at the stake. Um, I don't know why. I don't know why that makes um, the burning of the cathedral any less sad. That's a wonderful piece of whataboutism from optimistically cynical. A lot of people who are being sad. Um, Unconfirmed statement of Muslims saying being happy about the burning of the church. Um, uh, Shaggy wondering whether or not it's confirmed or as an accident. That's the best guess right now. I don't know how you're going to do like forensics on a collapsed roof, but the best guess right now um, is the accident. Um, yeah, and the investigation is open. Um, let's see. Faith R. A mosque in Jerusalem was burning at the same time, but apparently they controlled it faster. I agree about this symbolism of the burning of Notre Dame. I feel like it's a call for us to reinvigorate our faith so that we, in this age, can produce something so beautiful and so worthy. Excuse me. I saw an interview, says Rebecca, of the deputy mayor of Paris, and they said that they sent trucks when the fire broke out and saved as much as they could. So she's guessing that the crown of thorns is safe. Yeah, and we are happy that the Eucharist is safe too. Um, I would love to Philip stating the interior looks like it's better than we thought. I'm really hoping that the vaulted roof stayed there, the stone roof stayed there, or the stone ceiling stayed there, and then the wooden roof on top of that is the only thing that burned. That would be the best case scenario right now, because that would mean a lot of things, especially like holy things, you know, songbooks that are just as old as the church, chasubles, and things used for worship um, are still there. And especially when it comes to like the destruction of a church, we care about the people and the things used for worship. That's the real reason churches, you know, burnt churches or tragedies. And and on top of that, them being a sacred space reserved for worship of God and all of the things that worship of God kind of brings up in us. So, and that's why when things happen at churches in America, because there have been, they just caught the guy who was setting all those churches on fire in Louisiana, and you know there was the shooting in the churches in the Carolinas. These things are twofold in America. One is they're usually racially motivated, and then on top of that, they are happening in a place of worship. And that 1-2 punch of kind of heinous action is why it hits us so hard when it happens. And so if you can talk about that one element of this is a place of worship, you can see why Christians are reacting so hard on to this. So thank you everybody for coming to Bathrobe Chat with Steve the Missionary. I hope you guys have a good Holy Week. I will be posting videos every day, including Easter Sunday, and then I will be taking a week off because Lent has tuckered me out. So look forward to a lot of just reflections on the gospel story and on the death and resurrection of Jesus. I'll do them as creatively as possible, but that's really, I hope you get a week of prayer, great 2 weeks of entering into as much as possible every moment of the death and the resurrection of Jesus. So God bless you. The vlog is ended. Go in peace.